With you in this high holiday season, as well as the Shabbat, as we have just come off the high and holy occasion of hosting you all over there in the Holy Land. Such a prophetic and inspirational time, for us as a people. As our elder was sharing certain things, it was really inspiring to sit there and hear you share and break down the scriptures and the prophecies the way you are. But it says so many things that are very, very true. And we've been praying in this kingdom for this day for a very long time. Our brothers and sisters from your congregation have been able to travel and journey up to Jerusalem and break bread with us there to see how beautiful our land is, and to feel the love that we have for you. Sometimes we don't always agree on certain particular aspects of scripture, but that doesn't mean we're not the same people. Because we're the same people. And the Holy One of Israel knew when he scattered us what was going to happen. We would all become a little fragmented in our perspectives, but the great promise is that he'll begin to bring us back together and give us one heart and one spirit and one way. Yeah. So we see that process happening. And as the elder was talking about the 400 years, this is a season of so many great signs that are happening right before our eyes. As he talked about the time that we're living in, we know for surety that we're living in that time. Right. We're living in that time for great things to happen, in terms of our salvation, our redemption as a people. One of those great signs is he talked about the passing of H.O.D.C. 1242. And the 400-year prophecy, as it talks about in the book of Genesis. And that, oftentimes the Holy One of Israel puts it in the minds of his enemies to do his will. God. So the president passed this bill, and certainly we know that he didn't have the best interests of the house of Israel in mind when he passed that bill. My brother Gavaria shared with me an article from one of the magazines where it talked about that all this was about was us being reintegrated into a multicultural society and that are spiritually and prophetically significant to our redemption. And many of you know the year of return. Shortly after that, 2018, the president of Ghana came out here to America and launched the year of return. And in doing so, that has sparked piqued the interest of a lot of our people. I've been blessed the last 2 years to come out here to the States and speak in various cities. Last year was during Black History Month, and we came out and we talked about the 50 years that we have been able to, the point that we've been able to come to in the kingdom with our 50 years in the land, all right? 50 years since the great Exodus, the vision that came after Ben Ami in 1966, our leaving America, going into the wilderness of Liberia, and then from 1967 to 2017, that marks 50 years. So we celebrated the 50 years of that great Exodus, all right, during 2017. And since then, a lot of things have transpired. And at this particular time, we're talking about the blessings of Ghana opening the doors of return. All right? And if we relate to the prophecies, it says that the 400 years period time frame would also set into motion the chain of events, what? That we will come out, right, with great substance. And at the same time, that nation which held us will be judged, as the elder was talking about. Chain of events. So, as a result of the passing of this bill and the president of Ghana coming out and launching the year of return, and then piquing the interest of all of our people to want to return, as he said before, I was blessed to receive citizenship in 2016 from the former president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama. And from that time, I've been committed and dedicated as a servant to my people. Because it says, to whom much is given, much is required. And I knew that was a pure blessing. If you knew how that came to be, it wasn't due to any major efforts on my part, but it was a blessing because through my years in Ghana being dedicated to the service of Yah as a servant and being diligent and faithful, I was blessed with citizenship. Okay? But because of the way it came to me, I knew that I had to be committed and dedicated to making sure that it also became a reality for you. So since then, I've been dedicated on behalf of the kingdom as a representative with all of diaspora organizations that are there working with the government of Ghana to establish a more clear and customized policy for those of us in the diaspora who were taken from those lands under special circumstances, as we all know, in the bottom of ships, right? The right to return, right? Not to have to go through all of the red tape that anyone else who wasn't taken under those circumstances, who were not the sons and daughters of that land, have to go through. So we've been fighting for them to put a firm policy in place, and that is moving forward. We've been having some great responses. We have about 250 individuals who have submitted applications. And the word from the president's own mouth is that very soon we're looking towards possibly the celebration of Panafest, which comes up in the 7th month and the 8th month of this year, that there'll be some word that many of them will be granted citizenship. So we're looking forward to that in the very near future. But at the same time, that won't be enough. We want that firm law in place that would say we don't have to pay thousands of dollars to come back, that we don't have to wait 6 or 7 years in the land before we can get citizenship. We want something that will be streamlined for us, and that's in the work. In terms of my activities out here, I've been speaking at many of the universities and explaining to them the historic and prophetic nature of these events taking place. Many of them are not being taught these things in the institutions here, that they call the institutions of higher learning, but we know that they're far from that. Any institution that you leave Yah out of the midst of it, how can you call that higher education? So we've been teaching to them and talking to them about the fact that 50 years ago, the largest mass resettlement of Africans outside of America back to the land took place. They're not being taught this in their history books. So then they wouldn't be able to track the movement of Yah's people. So we've been sharing these type of things with them in the universities. And I moved around the various cities talking to the people and sharing with them the testimonies of the kingdom. And as a result, this last week or so, we had the blessing to have 2 high-level meetings. One was with the AU representative for the diaspora community to the U.S. in Delaware and in Atlanta. She said that she's been working with the AU member state heads, and that all of them have come to one consensus, that Africa as a continent cannot be uplifted without the inclusion, again, of those of us who were taken from those shores in the diaspora returned back. So she said she's out here on the mission to bring us home. And she's in the process of organizing our people in every major city so that they can begin to work together, so that those African heads of states will stop having to give all those major contracts to the Chinese and others, and they can begin to see that those of us who have skills, who have talents, who have businesses, who have resources can come and begin to build Africa. The other meeting we had was with the Ghana embassy here in DC. We actually were going to invite the ambassador. We talked to him about our 50-year experience in the land of Israel, how we worked there with the state of Israel for many years in the process of repatriation, and how we have the experience of developing absorption programs since they've called this the year of return, and there's such a response from our people. that response has triggered in them a slight state of fear, because they realize now with this great interest that the possibility they in their minds think millions of us are going to come back, unorganized, without the skills and talents to really come back and add value to the country. But we've assured them that our experience in the land proves otherwise. We've shown that we have been able to integrate against major odds in the land, and we've been able to establish positive and strong relationships with the indigenous people. We've been able to establish institutions not only there, but all across the countries of Africa and abroad here in the States. We've been able to organize and put our people into order. And that this process of us coming together, all of our people are being moved and being organized as well. You all were just, I remember when I was in Ghana before coming out here, I saw you, brother, on the video. You were part of the group that was there in Atlanta. And my spiritual father, Prince Ron, was saying that in all of his years here in the States, he said that he has never seen this spirit of unity coming together of us as a people in all of his years on assignment. And it's another kind of season. So we share with them. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All over Ghana, we were happy and excited. All over Israel, we were happy and excited. Everybody was talking about how this spirit of us coming together is taking place. And with our ability to do that, that's what strengthens and gives them confidence to know that there is a people, Yah's people, that know how to come together and work together. Right? The president of Ghana, he established one office there. Since he's come into his new term, this new president who declared the year of return, he established an office there for diaspora affairs. And with the many organizations that are there, the African American Association of Ghana, the Caribbean Association, you got the Diaspora African Forum, which is representing the AU and the diaspora. You have the Bureau of African Diaspora Affairs, Ministry of the Future, all of them during this process, what the Ghanaian government has seen, and one reason they're afraid is because they haven't been able to demonstrate the kind of oneness, the kind of unity that they expected when it says that we will come out with great substance. But we, as a people, are in the process all over, organizing, unifying, and we assured the ambassador that was our strength. So we invited him up to Israel, and prayerfully, as our Dawid was talking about this unity summit that we're planning in the 12th month, December, some of you will be there, so that we can sit down one to another and we can begin to share this brotherhood that Yah is bringing back together. And as he begins to align us prophetically, as he said, with one heart, one spirit, that we will be able to show them in Ghana that the Hebrew Israelites, the sons and daughters of Yah, are the only way. The only way that we as a people can unify and organize in a manner to make it successful, just as the AU ambassador has said. So I just wanted to share that with you and not take much of your time. Give you the opportunity to ask me any questions that you may have about Ghana and the process of getting citizenship, as well as any other question you may want to ask. Toda Rabah.
Yes, so on behalf of the House of David,